Hello, everybody, and good evening, and welcome back to another round of World Talks here on TVP World. My name's Don Arleth. Let's go ahead and get started. A very exciting night tonight. Pivotal presidential elections in Romania and Poland is the main topic of discussion. In Romania's runoff tonight, Bucharest mayor and pro-EU candidate Nicușor Dan has won the election, according to early exit polls. And here in Poland, it looks certain that Rafał Trzaskowski will face off against Karol Nawrocki in the second round, set to take place on June 1st. Now, joining me to discuss the implications and dynamics of these two presidential elections in Central Europe is former Romanian diplomat Eusebiu Slavitescu.
You got it right this time.
All right, I got it right. Great. Well, welcome to TVP World, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Sure.
All right, so let's start off with Romania. Quite surprising results. If we look back at the first round and we look at where we are tonight, I'm nicely surprised. What do you think explains the big jump in support for Dan?
So first, it's a great night. Let me put it that way. This drama finally stops here. Yeah, that started end of November last year. Good news because, George Simion won what a slight victory in the first round. He had 41%, and the second he was at 20-something%. So there was a huge gap to be caught up. And now, well, he did it. He did a lot of mistakes, to be honest. To some extent, my impression was he didn't want to be president. That's how many mistakes. Like, for example, in the past week, although he promised to participate in every TV debate, the stuff negotiated with the TV channels and everything. He missed each and every single one of them. After a week before, participated once, and he was badly beaten by Mr. Nicușor Dan. So probably he was afraid. And while running from presenting his political vision, how Romania should look if he's going to be elected president, no longer the case, he ran to Poland, campaigning here with Mr. Karol Nawrocki. He went to Meloni in Italy, although Ms. Meloni didn't really support him, just a photo on Facebook. He went to Paris, where he did something unforgivable and something really bad. He went on a TV station, and he sort of insulted the French people, their culture, their religion, everything, telling them that France is no longer a Christian country, comparing France's democracy with that of Iran's democracy. Calling Mr. Macron a dictator. This is absurd, and I'm being very elegant right now. And this doesn't pass, and we have a huge diaspora in France. And also, France and Romania, we have traditional, historical, and diplomatic relations very, very good, especially in the past years, where France is getting more and more interested in Romania. For example, right now, France has most of soldiers securing the eastern flank in Romania. So for a presidential candidate to go in a friendly country and to say those things, it just didn't play well.
Well, do you think this is part of this, far right or trying to play to the far right? We saw in the European elections last year this kind of shift to the right. We're seeing in several countries some disenfranchisement, between the mainstream candidates and what have you.
Well,
some people have made this conscious decision to play out to the far right. Did this help him in this case, or do you think it maybe hurt him?
It helped him a little bit. By the way, the entire MAGA movement, because this is where it started, to be honest, supported Mr. Georgescu first and now Mr. George Simion, honestly, a lot. It's impressive. And their messaging with the messaging from Kremlin somehow converge again, very interestingly. So while this was also a wave that has caught Romania in, and if you look at the region, we are not alone. But also there's as I said, I think here with you, a cocktail of grievances that happened. First, the entire collapse of the political traditional system. Even in November and right now, none of the candidates of the traditional huge parties, machines, got in the second runoff.
Right.
George Simion and Mr. Nicușor Dan, they are both somehow outside of the, they're pretty new to this. So this also represents a sort of, people just got tired. Also, the governance that we had in the past year wasn't very good. Not much was delivered.
Well, how do you think that the cancellation of the first round back in, at the end of last year, how has that played on politics ever since, leading into the first and second rounds?
Well, my impression, I mean, depends on the segment of the society. For example, for Mr. Simion, it was a huge mistake. It wasn't proved there was Russian interference. Mr. Georgescu should be president. By the way, Mr. George Simion, tonight, he announced victory. He claimed victory, claiming that he will put Prime Minister Mr. Georgescu, which, again, it's absurd. It's not going to happen.
Right, now you're convinced that the numbers show, currently based on the exit polls, that there's no way for Simion to
absolutely not
to take victory.
No. Nicușor Dan is our next president.
So what if he turns to some kind of political spectacle and doesn't concede the election and claims victory?
This is what he's doing. And he has started a couple of days ago by announcing fraud, accusing fraud, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Moldova, wherever we have this huge diaspora, which, by the way, contributes a lot. And George Simion, in the first round, he got, I think, around 60% of the diaspora vote and 40-something% Nicușor Dan, which this time, the calculation remains to be seen. We still have, I think, 1 million votes to count.
Right.
But we had a massive turnout this time. If last time we had 900,000, I believe, now we are looking at 1.78 million Romanians that took to the voting stations. So a lot of those, I think more than 40% will go to Nicușor Dan. It's why the calculation shows there's no way he's going to reverse that score.
And here in Poland, I mean, you've seen the election play out tonight. What's your opinion based on the polls? The results, the preliminary exit polls that we're seeing, that pretty much dead heat between Rafael.
Well, compared with what we had in Romania, campaigning here is pretty boring. Nobody's canceling election. No, I'm joking. So I expected Mr. Rafa to have a bigger advantage, according to the polls. Let's see how it goes. It's going to be, I mean, when I look at the numbers, it seems pretty complicated for the Liberal candidate to get this. At the same time, as the Polish people proved in the legislative elections, they can go out and vote with massive numbers. So that can change pretty much every calculation. And it all depends on that.
Well, turnout was pretty good. I mean, 66% is the last numbers that we saw. And this is,
and also in Romania, this is for the first time that we have such a huge turnout. 65%, I think we have. Since the fall of the criminal communist regime, it's impressive. And I think people really understand the stakes here. And the stakes, they were very clear. To the east or to the west, to Russia or to our family where we belong, where we always belong, the Euro-Atlantic family.
Right. Now, if looking at the experience of the last 2 weeks between these two elections in Romania, we have 2 weeks ahead of us here in Poland. What do you think the candidates need to do to appeal to voters and become victorious?
Well, it changes a bit because here, for example, in terms of security, everybody pretty much agrees, right? In Romania, we didn't. George Simion, he is not favored to Ukraine, not favored to NATO, even to the European Union somehow, not too much. Whereas here, I mean, the themes in the campaign was LGBT, European Union, how do we look at the European Union? So it's a dynamic that we didn't have it, and we see how it's going to go here. I don't know that much about them both, to be honest, to give my opinion about that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks, I think, and it's going to be a very, very close election.
Not as boring as it was until now. That's a sure thing. Right. Things are going to heat up, as they should in a political campaign, right? Because ultimately, what is it about? You have two candidates presenting two visions for Poland, right?
Certainly.
And the more you convince the Polish people to believe in your vision, to inspire them, well, that's how you win elections.
Yeah, certainly.
And maybe and hopefully without the massive Russian interference machine, which already tried to interfere.
Right. Now, you mentioned the large turnout in Romania. What do you think the role of young people was in these elections, especially in the second round?
Well, in the rural places, the number shows most of the young people voted for George Simion. Just like in Poland, I'd imagine, the liberal candidates has, to some extent, most of the cities, most of the urban areas, and Mr. George Simion, just like Mr. Karol Nawrocki, somehow gets all the rural places, except here in Poland, for example, as you had 8 years of peace governance. There's still a lot, mayors, there's still a lot in administration. So I'm not really surprised by the score Mr. Navrol got it, because, he still has a profound support here in Poland. As for the young people in Romania, as I said, a lot of them, the new, especially in the urban areas, all of them and most of them voted overwhelmingly with Mr. Nicușor Dan.
Right, right. Well, we have similar divides here in Poland, and we'll have to see exactly how this pans out. It certainly seems like that the candidates need to apply themselves and appeal to voters that normally wouldn't vote for them, and that's going to be the tricky part. In terms of bilateral relations after all of these elections are finished, any big changes, do you think, on the horizon?
Between Poland and Romania? No. We both need each other, let's put it that way. Poland and Romania, we are the biggest economies, biggest countries on the eastern flank. We have the biggest army, with Poland leading. Leading everywhere, but compared to Romania, I think the choice...
Important roles in NATO and securing
Absolutely. I think we should absolutely consolidate and cooperate a lot more, especially on security, especially with the Russian bear next to us, trying to eat a piece of us each time. I really think we should consolidate a lot more in terms of security. We could, for example, when buying weapons, why duplicate them? Why not, create joint ventures so we can, bring ever closer our defense industries? Romania has some. Poland has a bigger one industry. Why not, converge them now with billions and billions of euros released for this sector? And Poland understood very well in terms of security what to do. We haven't that much. So we need to follow Poland's example, if you ask me. In terms of security, Poland did everything right. Mm-hmm. Because, for historical reason, Poland, the Baltics, because you can always count on the Baltics, the Nordics, Poland, and to some extent Romania, to understand the Russian threat very well, unlike some of our friends from the West, from the traditional West. Right. And we have seen that along the way, many times, sadly.
Well, let's hope that relationship continues to develop and blossom. Eusebiu Slavitescu, thank you very much for joining me and being my guest today. We appreciate your thoughts.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this round of World Talks. Thank you for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.